father. How do I save him?
What would you sacrifice? How far are you willing to go to save your home? Save your loved ones, to save your family's legacy? Are you willing to reject the very thing you were raised on? To reevaluate yourself, your perception, the morals, the values, and the way that you conduct yourself? It's not an easy thing. To take a step back, question yourself, question your world, everything that you based your life upon, and to question the word of people that you look up to, the people that you respect. Honestly, many people aren't even capable of questioning the core pillars they've built their own self-image and understanding of the world on. And yet here, within the story of Ghost of Tsushima, that is exactly what Jin Sakai is forced to do. It's a difficult task on its own, but it's only worsened when people's lives are now on the line. Villages are burned and people are slaughtered in the streets. Jin's uncle, the sole member of what remains from his family, is also kidnapped, with Jin having no idea of what type of fate awaits his family in the early hours of the game's story. The story of the Ghost of Tsushima is one that I've always loved, but over time, I've really learned to appreciate and admire Jin's personal struggle. It's actually a really great one, but it's often overshadowed by the game and the developers being praised for the unique setting, taking place in the year 1274 with a real historical event serving as the game's backdrop, which was the Mongol invasion of the small Japanese island of Tsushima, a real-life occurrence. And while historical events, wars, or catastrophes are often represented in video games or used as a vessel to tell a story, one that takes place in feudal Japan with many accuracies to either Japanese culture and heritage or the art and conduct of being a samurai during said times is not only incredibly unique, but it's even more cherished in a giant breath of fresh air in contrast to modern wars or the setting of World War II that's basically been beaten to death. Not to mention, the other major form of appraisal for this game is its art direction and conscious decision to change up the game's HUD and navigational system. There's no minimap, compass, or obscenely distracting amounts of information thrown at you on screen. Instead, what we get is the game's wind. That's what replaced this game's minimap. That is how you get from point A to point B without ever getting lost. Points of interest in the form of finding cosmetics, additional side missions, haikus, bamboo strikes to strengthen your resolve, which is a metric used for healing yourself and utilizing special attacks, or hot springs to increase your overall health, are all found naturally by exploring the world with a small golden bird serving as your guide to what curious location may just lie around the corner. From presentation, story, cinematics, the graphics, the music, all the way down to the actual gameplay and navigation, Ghost of Tsushima is a giant breath of fresh air, beautifully crafted to honor the legacy and code of conduct by the samurai. Paying homage to Japan's heritage and history, it's all weaved into Jin's personal transformation from the fallen samurai all the way to becoming the legend of the ghost, a guardian that has transcended the bonds of human flesh. And by the end of the game, stories claim this ghost is 10 feet tall with an army amassing behind him, ready to take the fight to the Mongols. Even the game's ranking system ties into this very same transformation, with it starting with the broken samurai, all the way to the Ghost of Tsushima. But enough of the introduction, let's begin at the start. The game begins on Komoda Beach. Jin is by his uncle Lord Shimura's side. Lord Shimura is acting as Jito of the island, essentially meaning he's in charge on behalf of the shogun. However, Jin's ties to Shimura don't end at just obeying him as ruler or simply due to the family dynamic. Lord Shimura is also Jin's personal guide and tutor into the world of becoming a proper samurai, to protect people, to look your enemies in the eyes, face them head on, and fight them with honor and dignity, never to strike from the shadows or cut them down from behind like a coward. In wake of the death of Jin's father, he had to learn these core pillars as soon as he possibly could, because it was he who was to assume the role his father had as leader of Clan Sakai. What is interesting here is also the armor Jin has on. There's another samurai here that is leader of his own clan, Arunobu Adachi, Clan Adachi. He has his own armor, representative of his position within his own clan, a position Jin is in as well, leader of Clan Sakai. Yet instead of donning on his father's old armor, signaling Jin's preparedness to step into his father's shoes, he opts in to wear armor more in line with submitting and following Clan Shimura. I wanted to point this out because it's immediately apparent through later events in the game that Jin cannot forgive himself for the role he played or felt he played in the death of his father. Because of his own fear, he hid and watched his father get killed in battle, and that was something he struggled with for the rest of his life, and it's not until later on when he returns home that he basically has to face and accept that. But going back to Komodo Beach, I feel the armor he dons on and the fact you can't repair it after the Battle of Komodo Beach is representative of Jin and Shimura's bond. While he is Jin's uncle, over time they adopted a father and son type of bond. A bond that was extremely strong at the beginning of the game. It was a bond that began to fracture and break, their relationship and views on one another becoming strained as the Mongol invasion made the odds the two of them were at and how to handle this growing threat becoming more and more apparent. Jin made the conscious decision to commit to facing the Mongol invaders with honor. Honor that through his armor and subsequent flashbacks shows was a reflection of what his relationship was like to Lord Shimura. Unfortunately, due to the Mongols' overwhelming numbers, all 80 samurai that was summoned to face the Mongol threat was killed in battle. That included Jin. Lord Shimura was captured and taken to Castle Kanada, where he was kept as a prisoner in his own castle by the Mongol leader, Khotun Khan. Sometime after the Mongols cleared Komodo Beach, a thief by the name of Yuna pulled Jin off the battlefield and nursed him back to health. In order to acquire some medicine she needed to heal Jin's wounds from the battle, she sold off his katana. Do not be mistaken though, his rescue from an honorable death in battle wasn't out of the kindness of Yuna's heart, or out of helping save the Jito. Instead, Yuna's motivations were rather selfish in nature. She needed Jin's help to rescue her brother, who was a gifted blacksmith that was taken as prisoner by the Mongols in the earlier hours of their invasion of Tsushima. Jin agrees to help her as long as Lord Shimura is rescued first, as Lord Shimura is not only Jin's family, but is the true person capable of repelling the Mongol invasion. While Yuna agrees, it's an uneasy agreement, since Yuna would prefer her brother was saved first. She believes he should be the priority as he wouldn't survive long in Mongol captivity. To add to the apprehensive alliance between Jin and Yuna, within these first moments of meeting each other, Jin has discovered something rather unsavory about her, coming to the realization that she saved him on a beach of death and Mongol warriors without being seen, and given her knowledge and proven skills in moving across rooftops or underneath buildings, again without being seen, Jin realizes she's a thief, the very antithesis of himself. Her methods of sneaking around by rooftop or underneath buildings are the very definition of being dishonorable. And it extends beyond just the means of scavenging and surviving, but also killing. The initial connection between Jin and Yuna is one that really serves to show how rigid Jin is. In the beginning, the ultimate follower of the samurai code, honor, facing the enemy head-on and saving those who are too weak to protect themselves. Something he does pretty defiantly after Yuna suggests sneaking up to some Mongols that were blocking their path to escape via some nearby horses. Then, subsequently, she refused to help others in need, reminding Jin that he cannot save everyone and other people on the island need him. It's quite the contrast, because not only is Jin sticking to his code even after the code and honorable ways failed him, Lord Shimura, Arunobu Adachi, and the other 77 samurai on Komodo Beach, resulting in every single one of them being slaughtered, but Yuna and her goals are quite different as well. Understandably, their reason for coming together is because they have their own personal goals and ways of achieving them in mind. Jin is hyper-fixated on saving the island, the only way he knows how, through strength, courage, honor, and Lord Shimura leading the liberation army filled with nothing but samurai warriors, all upholding the same tradition and respected ways of fighting. Yuna, on the other hand, sees Jin as her ticket to saving her brother, proposing various methods that the samurai within Jin cannot fathom being an acceptable way to conduct battle or carry oneself. Over time, after Jin fails one final attempt at honorably saving his uncle and facing the Khan at Castle Kanada, head on. He loses to the Khan in one-to-one fighting and gets thrown over the side of a bridge. Jin miraculously escapes death for a second time, though this time his spirit is broken, re-experiencing the same intense feeling of failure he had all those years ago when he watched his father get killed before his eyes. After this failure, Jin, with the realization of Yuna, came to accept the very thing that would later be the rift between himself and his uncle.
I swore to protect this island with my life. But now the Mongols have stolen our home, killed our samurai.
You forgot what it's like to fight someone stronger than you. To feel weak. Sometimes when you're staring death in the face, you have to do whatever it takes to survive.
The Khan expects to fight a war against the samurai. He will anticipate our every move, unless we find new ways to surprise him. That's how we'll save Lord Shimura, and retake our home.
The samurai are predictable. If he wants to save his uncle, he can't be. He can't afford to be, on account of the Mongols' much larger army. With numbers on their side and a deep and strong understanding of their enemy, the Mongols have to be shown they aren't just dealing with one lone rogue samurai, but the wrath of an entire people. The seeds of the legend of the ghost are now sown, though as they say, things are easier said than done. Jin may be okay with confessing this out loud, but it doesn't mean he takes to Yuna's teachings so easily. While Jin goes and gathers the help of Sensei Ishikawa and Lady Masako, trained warriors he believes would be invaluable in the rescue of Lord Shimura, Yuna gathers information on where and how to rescue her brother, Taka. She has a series of tales or missions that lead up to her main goal of Taka's rescue, a goal Jin happily campaigns behind as being their collective priority now, since Yuna promised that Taka, being a gifted blacksmith, could craft something to help Jin scale the walls of Gasu Kanada, a critical tool vital to the rescue of Lord Shimura. With Yuna leading the way on how to go about rescuing her brother, she begins to enlighten Jin on the ways of the thief, and the art of striking from the shadows. It's yet another small way Sucker Punch displays the contrasting mentalities and methods of accomplishing goals between this duo. Jin still seeks honor and relies on renowned warriors. Yuna has no such allies or people to call upon. Instead, she has her tuition and wit that is heavily based upon scavenging, sneaking, and slicing one's throat.
If they see us, they'll kill the prisoners.
Then we better stay quiet. And open their throats.
From Yarikawa! Traitor! You would stab the Chido in the back! No, Sakai! Control yourself. We are not criminals, like this man here. We are samurai.
He tried to kill you! He must answer for this crime with his life.
And look him in the eye. And teach him that samurai never acts out of anger or fear. And take his life with honor. When we fight, we face our enemy head-on. When we take their life, we look them in the eye with courage and respect. This is what makes us samurai. Only cowards strike from the shadows.
this is the first time Jin is actually confronted with the dilemma of what does honor really mean to him. How far can he comfortably go in actively and openly disobeying the very foundation of not just what his uncles raised him on? It's not as simple of right and wrong or a code. He can't just separate the two. Honor has consumed his life, and here with this first assassination, it was brutal. Jin has no experience in taking a life this way, a life that is not just the way of a coward, but it robs the victim of peace and of a swift death. Yet, another core tenet of respecting your enemy. They're still human, and here, he's draining life from their necks like cattle. It's not easy, nor is it beautiful, but he does believe it's necessary. Necessary for a goal. Jin, whether if he realizes it or not, starts to change over time. Initially, it's necessary for the liberation of Lord Shimura, a temporary means to the end of Lord Shimura bringing salvation to the island of Tsushima. Salvation that is meant to be brought about by the tradition and ways of the samurai. Something Jin still believes in, confidently too. Even though he admitted the Khan is aware of the samurai's way of fighting, in this moment, in the earlier hours of the game, he thinks it's more of an issue with numbers. And there's no reason to change how the samurai fight or what deadly consequences fighting honorably could have. That mentality, that shift, comes later. Right now, he puts all his faith in Shimura and sacrifices his own personal honor to save his uncle. Honor in the samurai code is still something he values above everything else, even though he must push it to the wayside. It's not the way until his uncle is saved. When that goal is realized, then and only then can Jin reclaim his honor as a samurai. And we know it's just a temporary means, or at least some of the methods such as poison are meant to be. And we know that because Sucker Punch has done something wonderful with this game's storytelling. Yuna's first mission, titled Warrior's Code, is important because it is the perfect example of Jin's personal struggle. During this tale, we're introduced to assassinations and focused hearing, which we already basically covered. It furthers the game's stealth mechanics and sets up the very foundation of the legend of the ghost Jin was slowly morphed into. But it's through that very introduction to stealth that we're given a direct taste of why Jin hates these tactics so much and how he has to swallow his honor and resort to the very thing that almost cost his uncle his life many years ago. Now, this first cutscene with Jin reliving the moment his uncle almost got assassinated is unavoidable. Everyone will experience it. This first time, Jin just sits and stares at the corpse of the Mongol he just brutally killed. No words, just blank. Now, as the game progresses, there are secret or unscripted flashbacks you could experience. They're not incredibly unique, they're smaller snippets of this bigger flashback that you originally experienced, but thanks to the core gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima tailoring to either a direct, more honorable way of fighting where you can choose to engage in standoffs or just outright fighting head on, or you can immerse yourself in the game's stealth mechanics, bringing the ghost to its fullest potential by assassinations and poisoning. Thanks to how this game caters to both playstyles, you can go pretty far without triggering these smaller flashbacks, but the first time you assassinate someone, after assassinations are introduced, you get this small callback.
Stay close, Yuna. I'll follow.
Jin. We look them in the eye with courage. Only cowards strike from the shadows.
Forgive me, Uncle.
Jin's regrets and repentance for this dishonorable conduct. Assassinating for Jin is a matter of courage and respect, as that is what is directly recalled, while poisoning is all about setting an example for the people of Tsushima, to be true to oneself and to be honorable in life and in war.
But we must set an example for our people by remaining true to our code and to ourselves.
The poison's just for now. After the Mongols are gone, I won't need it.
Small flashbacks, but what makes it so vital is the fact that none of them are scripted. As long as you commit an assassination or some type of poisoning, you will trigger these flashbacks. It's just a matter of when. For instance, my assassination flashback in this particular gameplay was during the mission The Broken Blacksmith. Meanwhile, in an entirely different playthrough, I got the same exact flashback out in the open world doing something completely differently. And the same thing with the poisoning. I got that flashback during a main mission versus completely different playthrough. I was at a different point in the story doing something completely different. And the reason why that's so important, or at least worth mentioning and highlighting, is because it just goes to show this is a deep struggle for Jin. Every time he does it, it hurts him. Mentally, he distances himself from it because it's not what he was raised on, nor is it something he knows his uncle would approve of. It adds depth to Jin as a person. As a character, it's easier to sympathize with him, because these aren't isolated instances that are just forgotten. He doesn't just struggle this first time and then carry about it like it's no big deal. It's not just a temporary disagreement that doesn't bother him. No, it's a reminder that after all this time, after improving himself and performing quicker, cleaner assassinations, one that would actually grant the swift death and not be so dramatic or bloody, he still struggles to do it because it's not the way. It's not his uncle's way. And for the first time playing this game, experiencing those flashbacks, it's such a stun because it's a reminder that he's breaking his very code and defying everything that he's ever known. A code that he slowly comes to see the flaws in. Now I need to recap a little bit of the story to make sure no one gets lost, but the point is now to focus on the rift between Jin and his uncle Lord Shimura. Taka, Yuna's brother, is eventually rescued by Jin and Yuna. With the island's most gifted blacksmith in his debt, Jin commissions Taka to craft an item to aid him in freeing Lord Shimura from Castle Kanada. Taka crafts an iron hook, allowing Jin to sneak into the castle undetected, and is successful in freeing his uncle. After Lord Shimura is free, he informs Jin that his exploits have reached him in captivity, and now that he's free, Jin must leave his unorthodox tactics behind and accept his position as a leader and example to the people of Tsushima. Jin says he will abandon his ways, and the next step in liberating the island is now underway, retaking Lord Shimura's castle. Shimura has Jin return to his family's estate and claim his father's old armor. From this point forward, Jin is meant to be another representative of the samurai. He and Shimura are going to be the two leading the shogun's warriors against the Khan's army. It's a message that not all samurai are dead, nor will they go down so easily. Shimura also has Jin, with the help of Yuna, collect the support of a part of Tsushima known as Yarikawa. Not an easy task, as the people of Yarikawa have no support or love for Lord Shimura, as years ago the clan of Yarikawa led a rebellion against Lord Shimura. Yarikawa was put down by Shimura and Clan Sakai. Jin's own clan helped in the suppression of the rebellion. The local populace still felt the effects of their defeat. Clan Yarikawa lost their status and was outcasted as punishment for the rebellion. This left them bitter and resentful, not only towards Lord Shimura and Clan Shimura, but Clan Sakai as well. Thankfully, Yuna and Taka actually grew up in Yarikawa, and they vouched for Jin. While Jin approached Yarikawa on behalf of Lord Shimura, Taka and Yuna vouched not for the envoy of Lord Shimura, a samurai who was a blood relative and close supporter of the person Yarikawa hated as much as the Mongols. But instead, Yuna and Taka claim they're rallying behind the Ghost, an entity, a movement that needs the support of Yarikawa, creating a unified front across all of Tsushima to repel the Mongol invaders. Despite Jin's request for Yarikawa to support Shimura, or the fact he was a blood relative along with his very clan playing a role in Yarikawa's downfall during its rebellion many years ago, it wasn't the mutual interest of repelling the Mongol invasion or the dangerous position the town of Yarikawa was in, surrounded by an overwhelming Mongol force under threat of being pillaged and ransacked. But it was the curiosity of Ujimasa, the enacting leader of what little remained of Clan Yarikawa. He wanted to see the Ghost for himself. Stories of the Ghost and the various methods used to defeat the Mongols have leaked into almost every corner of the island at this point, not just stopping at Lord Shimura when he was in captivity, but going as far north and as deep south as word could take it. That's all it was, though. Stories. There was no name or face for who was responsible for this myth. Now, in Ujimasa's presence, the Ghost finally has a face, and it's the face of the nephew of the man Yarikawa hates more than anything.
I never thought Lord Shimura's nephew would be responsible for the Ghost. You best be careful, or he'll punish you, as he punished my once great family.
For inciting rebellion against your Jito.
The Mongols want to conquer the mainland. They will lose interest in us. And Yarikawa will survive.
Out of sheer hate for any thought of being unified with Shimura, being delusional with the perilous state Yarikawa is in, or maybe a mixture of both, Ujimasa rejects helping Jin and believes Yarikawa would be no interest to the Mongols in time. They just have to bide their time. It's not until a local blacksmith informs Taka that the best archers in Yarikawa, defiant against Ujimasa, decided to leave a few days ago to take the fight to the Mongols. No one has heard from them since they left though. This was Jin's opportunity. He and Yuna decided to go and search for the missing archers and use them as a way to achieve the support of Yarikawa. Eventually they catch up to them. Jin secures the archers' promise of convincing Ujimasa to commit Yarikawa to fighting the Mongols. In exchange, Jin was to help with breaking the Mongol siege around the town of Yarikawa. Jin accepts, but there's one small thing. The archers don't pledge to Shimura or the samurai that rally behind him. No, Yarikawa and its people are behind the ghost. And unlike all of Jin's previous moves of clearing Mongol outposts or liberating villages that had no civilians, here, within the walls of Yarikawa, the legend of the ghost will reach heights Jin will no longer be able to control. And he delves deeper into things that he's been raised and trained not to do, primarily giving into his anger and using fear as a weapon. Jin's swordsman expertise and exploits have gotten beyond him at this point. Clearly, what he's been doing has been reaching everyone. But it's when he breaks the siege of Yarikawa, kills General Tsumuge, and slaughters all remaining Mongol warriors around Yarikawa where the legend becomes something he can't control. Here in Yarikawa, a den of what would be perceived as traitors to Lord Shimura, people who refuse to accept servitude to the Mongols yet hate Lord Shimura and hold no support for the man who shamed and outcasted them. Now, with Jin, they've found an alternative, something else to believe in, another way forward. Yarikawa gave the ghost the biggest audience and largest opportunity to receive appraisal from people who not only firsthand seen the samurai, who fights like no other samurai. This vengeful spirit was not the normal carrier of samurai traditions, but something much more. And now, it's no longer just a story. I also want to point out around the same time is when Jin begins to add poison to his arsenal, a decision he made entirely on his own. Up until this point, Yuna was the one training him in the art of guerrilla warfare, opening someone's throat and moving without being seen. But Yuna was all up close and personal, with the intent of being undetected, not necessarily to strike fear, but to avoid overwhelming numbers. Jin took it a step further, learning how to utilize poison and shooting poisonous darts from a distance via a blowgun, a more gruesome death than just striking with a blade from behind. A death that would befall many Mongols, with Shimura witnessing firsthand the warrior Jin has become, one who he claims has no honor, that brings shame to the memory of his father, the legacy of Clan Sakai, and a disgrace to his uncle who has raised him. Despite him promising his uncle that he will drop his unsavory guerrilla tactics, Jin continues to build the ghost up behind Lord Shimura's back, gaining supporters and finding new ways to fight the Mongols. Meanwhile, Lord Shimura made an attempt with the shogun to solidify his relationship with his nephew, formally asking his permission to adopt Jin as his son, with the goal of Jin eventually taking Shimura's mantle. It's touching, and it goes to show that regardless of everything that happens between these two moving forward, Shimura still loves and cares deeply for Jin. As the player, it's easy to understand Jin's decision to start incorporating poison and to sympathize with him, but it's also hard to not feel for Shimura. He lives his life strictly in line with this code of honor, a code of honor that would cause irreparable damage between him and his now adopted son. And it all happens in a grand way. At the time, when the island is meant to unite, retaking Castle Shimura from the Mongols. At the start of the battle to retake Castle Shimura, all is well. In fact, it's quite inspirational. Samurai donning armor in support of Clan Shimura, and from the mainland, fight alongside the outcasts of Yarikawa and other allies Jin has made along the way. It's a beautiful sight to see so many people fight under a unified cause, freeing the island from the invaders. Together they manage to fight bravely and breach the outer walls of the castle. Eventually they come to a sealed off door where Jin is told to scout ahead, while the rest of Shimura's army regroups on the door. Jin, in this brief moment of being left alone, takes the opportunity to let the enemy experience the legend of the ghost firsthand.
Run home, Japanese dogs! These aren't open for you! you doing?
Clearing the way.
Not like that. Never like that. Face them as a warrior with honor. Monster.
It's all they understand.
Terror is not the weapon of a samurai.
Long gone are the days of saying this is just a temporary thing. As Jin claims now, being a monster is all these animals know. From the poison to decapitating from behind to then picking up the decapitated head and taunting the enemy. Shimura finally sees firsthand what Jin has been resorting to this whole time, and it goes a step further by Jin's taunting and seemingly unfazed by what he's doing. In Shimura's eyes, it's utter betrayal, but the shock is cut short since the Mongol threat is far from over. It's clear everything Jin has witnessed and hold the Mongols responsible for, from repressing every corner of the island, capturing and humiliating his uncle, damn near almost killing him twice, persuading the Straw Hat, Ronin, and their leader Rizo, who is a longtime childhood friend of Jin, betray him and his people. It's all taken a toll on Jin. Far too long he's been outnumbered, out-resourced, and failing those around him. Why change these methods when they're yielding results? With most of the castle cleared, what remained of the Mongol occupying force at Castle Shimura decided to retreat across a bridge and hold out. Wary of the Mongols' decision to just break off and hide, Jin warned Shimura to not give chase, as he could be leading his samurai into a trap. As it turns out, Jin's suspicion was correct. As the samurai gave chase to the Mongols across the sole bridge to the last part of the castle that they occupied, the Mongols opened up the doors and led a herd of horses rigged with lead explosives to race across the bridge towards the samurai. Jin and Yuna luckily stopped the horses before reaching the opposite side of the bridge, but it did come at the cost of all the samurai on the bridge. This was the pivotal moment where Jin sees the flaws within the code of honor, or at least how Shimura defines his honor. Jin and Yuna both see the deaths of the samurai on the bridge as unnecessary and the fault of Shimura, who arrogantly decided to give chase. They also see him as having no remorse for what happened, seeing it as a sacrifice that they made for the honor of the Jito they serve. It's a fate that Shimura planned to repeat again, as he planned to have more samurai repair the bridge and follow up with a counterattack going over the bridge again, possibly leading to the same outcome of more samurai lives being lost. Jin, trying his best to avoid such a fate for his samurai, offers to advance ahead solo, sneak into the Mongol camp, and poison the enemy. Besides the offer being in clear defiance of what Shimura and the samurai define as honorable battle, Shimura brings up another point. If he allows Jin to do this, Jin would be utilizing terror as a weapon, and teaching the people of Tsushima to fear the samurai. It makes the decision of what to do a little bigger, because it's not just a strict code at stake anymore. These warriors, Shimura and Jin included, are meant to lead by example, and with Jin having the support of the people of Yarikawa, an uneasy alliance to begin with, and possibly more people by the day across the entire island, as they seem more accomplished by way of the methods of the ghost compared to the samurai that are predictable and figured out by the Mongols, being captured or killed at every single turn. For those that played the game, it's the same mission, it's the same interaction that pushes Jin to accept the ghost. Up until now, he's quietly accepted being branded as the ghost by others. If it meant giving the people something to have hope in and fight for, so be it. He never openly claimed to be the ghost, nor did he ever reject it. However, after this disagreement with Shimura, Jin decides to go ahead forward by himself. He puts on his armor, uniquely tailored for the ghosts, and sneaks into the Mongol camp. He poisons the entire Mongol force, and when the samurai forces behind Lord Shimura catch up, Jin presents the castle to Lord Shimura. He rejected his samurai tradition, but he still knows who he serves. Unfortunately, that doesn't matter though. Jin openly defied Shimura.
This is not our way. Your way can't save our people.
The shogun will demand a head. But it does not have to be yours. I know she drove you to this.
Uncle.
Renounce the ghost. You must blame her for this outrage. Tell them you are Jin Shimura, loyal servant to the shogun. My heir. My son.
I am not your son. I am the ghost.
And you will be judged for it.
By his own example, he's taught the people of Tsushima to defy the samurai, by defying the Jito of the island. Though that's not to say there wasn't a chance of redemption. Ethical or not, Shimura gave Jin the opportunity to brand all the misdeeds, all the wrongdoings, from the poison to the assassinations and the dissension that's yet to come on Yuna. Jin doesn't have to pay for the misdeeds of the ghost, nor does Shimura want him to. He still wants him as a son. It's a little ironic as it's a pretty emotional decision. I get it being emotional in battle, something Shimura taught Jin to never do, isn't exactly the same thing as being unemotional or detached when it comes to family. I suppose you can't be cold as ice 24/7, but Shimura's choosing to hand Yuna over to the shogun, claiming her as the one responsible for the ghost, and Jin would be able to continue to carry on Shimura's legacy. It's kind of messed up because Jin practically is the one doing all these things. Yuna was just weaving a story around Jin's own actions. And, of course, Yuna had nothing to do with Jin bringing poison into his arsenal to begin with. It's a pretty messed up situation all around, but Jin, for the first time publicly, accepts being the ghost, destroying his future, throwing away his past and relationship with his uncle, all while being branded as a traitor from this moment forward. To avoid a possible civil war, Jin allows the samurai to take him into custody with no resistance. Jin is in custody and held as a prisoner at Shimura Castle, but he isn't held in captivity for long. Thanks to the help of a farmer and sake seller by the name of Kenji, Jin is let out of his cell. He escapes further north and reconnects with Yuna in their pursuit to hunt down and kill the Khan. For the remainder of the game, it's really all about growing the legend of the ghost further and further, rallying the northern part of the island and anyone else who doesn't exactly support the samurai, for one reason or another, whether they're dishonorable, unsavory, outcasts, or have just been isolated from any other Japanese forces. It's just easier to answer the ghost call to arms. At the same time, universally across the island of Tsushima, as well as mainland Japan, the shogun has branded the ghost of Tsushima as a traitor. It's never said exactly why. If I had to guess, it wasn't just due to Jin's exploits in battle and completely defying the way of the samurai, but technically being a completely different threat. Jin is becoming too powerful for his own good. He's an actual person and not just a legend. People are flocking to him, rallying behind him, and it's the growing support of the people that's possibly seen as a threat to the foundation of the shogun and the samurai's power. Something that's made even worse by the Mongols beginning to deploy poison against Japanese people. Atrocities and tactics that originate from the ghost are now being used against his own people. The shogun and the samurai blame him for it. Through some in-game dialogue, it's revealed the shogun has deemed the ghost a bigger threat than the Mongols, but possibly due to a mix of his personal feelings towards Jin and knowing the repercussions that may befall the island's already fragile state if he chose to focus on Jin, capturing him and sending him to the mainland instead of unifying to defeat the Mongols. Shimura ignores the shogun, and while still aware of the wanted status of his nephew's head, he decides to prioritize the Khan. The Khan is eventually defeated by a combination of Jin with those that have pledged their allegiance to the ghost, and even the samurai, led by Lord Shimura. Even if the latter arrived late, or was primarily used to hold down most of the Mongol forces while Jin faced the Khan head-on, it worked. It allowed Jin to decapitate the animal that had had a death grip on Tsushima for a long time. Though, Jin's struggles doesn't end here. With the Khan dead, there's still some small pockets of Mongol outposts and warriors to clean up here and there, but before they can be dealt with, Jin must face his uncle one last time at Jin's family estate in Omi village. Ceremoniously, Jin meets his uncle at the very spot he trained as a boy, the very dueling pit where his uncle taught him what honor meant, how he was expected to carry on his father's legacy and be more than just another honorable samurai. Jin meets with his uncle, and the whole thing is very sad. He learns from Shimura that his family's estate is being taken, and Clan Sakai no longer exists. Jin's home and family legacy will be no more. As they take a final horse ride together, they run into a man whose wagon is stuck in the mud. The man claims He's joining the Ghost's army, and the wagon of supplies is meant for the powerful force that the Ghost is gathering up north.
That's a heavy load. Where are you headed?
Jogaku. The Ghost army is up there.
He has an army.
You didn't hear? They'll sail for the Mongol steppes with a storm at their back. Burn their homes to the ground.
An impressive goal.
This is everything I can offer them. I hope it helps.
Then we will see you on your way.
Jin has no such army, and the man has no idea the person he's speaking to is responsible for the legend of the Ghost. This is just a small example of how big the Ghost has gotten, and Shimura goes on to say, countless people flock to the Ghost every day. Shimura doesn't want to talk about the Ghost though. They continue to talk about what could have been, what should have been, reclaiming the island as father and son, with Clan Sakai still existing. The horse ride they take concludes in the cemetery of Clan Sakai, where Jin's father is buried. It's here where Shimura finally tells Jin why he's called him here.
I will miss this.
So will I. The Shogun has declared you a traitor.
He ordered you to kill me.
The Ghost was an outlaw. He taught our people to defy their leaders.
To defend themselves.
With poison. A gift you gave to our enemy.
I had to stop you from throwing away our people's lives.
You have no honor.
And you are a slave to it.
You are my son. Now I must continue the line of Shimura without you. I must start a new family.
And my head is the cost.
Taking it is my punishment.
Their relationship and perceived punishment isn't so black and white. Saying Shimura is a slave to his honor, I think, summarizes it pretty well. Jin had meaningful intentions, and we can't reject that his methods of poison did cause civilians to die. The same horrible death as retribution for what Jin made the Mongols suffer through. But he did do it as an alternative to not willingly kill his own people. Warriors or not, Shimura's honor could have been the very thing standing in the way of those serving underneath him going home to their families. Even if dying an honorable death in battle was something that they wanted, I think it's safe to say that Jin valued his people's life so much, he rejected his own salvation to guarantee a future for them. He swore to protect the island and people with his life, even if that meant being rejected by those that ruled the island, being outcast, and in this sense, hunted by what little family remained. What makes this also heartbreaking between Shimura and Jin isn't necessarily where their paths have taken them. It's more so the complex emotions that they're feeling. Jin, in a way, feels justified. As I said, during the duration of most of the game's entire story, he was outnumbered, out-resourced. He was resorting to tactics that were actually paying off, and it wasn't coming at the cost of any more of his people's lives. On the flip side, Shimura has lived and worked according to his honor, to serve the shogun and to serve the people of the island the only way he knows how. And he's just disappointed. It's utter sadness. You can see the tears streaming down his face. He's being punished, being forced to take the head of his only family, the person that was supposed to be the heir to his legacy, the person that he invested everything into. This was his son. As they sit down and write the final words of Clan Sakai and Clan Shimura before they fight to the death, Jin has one final flashback. A flashback where he's mourning the death of his father. And this man who raised him the best that he could promised to make him the greatest swordsman his clan has ever seen.
Your parents will always be with you.
Yes, Uncle.
I will train you to become the strongest warrior Clan Sakai has ever known. raise you as my own son. Are you ready?
There are very few games where the ending is so damn emotional for me, and this one is definitely up there. I mean, you really get the feeling this is their final day together. Shimura was shedding tears, saying this is their final day together, and it's such a beautiful day. Meanwhile, Jin is over there in silence, reminiscing on everything the man he looks up to his whole life has done for him. Then as they approach each other, they unsheath their swords and set their stances ready to fight to the death. Now in the game of Ghost of Tsushima, you can choose to either kill Lord Shimura or spare him. Apparently, the canonical ending is actually sparing Lord Shimura, and it's actually one that I love because Jin delivers what is probably the best line in the entire game.
I have no honor. But I will not kill my family. The ghost will be hunted for the rest of his days. I know.
Refusing to take his uncle's life, he gives Shimura a final bow and walks off into the distance, knowing he will be hunted for the rest of his life. And one of those days, his uncle may be leading the hunting party. Jin gave it all up, technically dying on Komodo Beach, alongside his fellow samurai, rising from the sands as something more than just a vengeful spirit. He wasn't just a samurai with a second life, coming to restore the tradition and power of the samurai. No, honor and tradition died on Komodo Beach, and along with that, the comfort of inheriting his uncle's legacy, of one day becoming acting Jito on the island of Tsushima. Jin resorted to tactics and methods that shamed him and alienated him from the very culture and people he was raised in. He sacrificed it all for his people. He did any and everything that he could in order to save the lives of his people, and yet, in spite of all that, he's seen as the most dishonorable on the entire island, even though he made the ultimate sacrifice.